Aloha. Happy Friday and welcome to Java. Thank you for joining me. It is for February 16th, 2024. As always, quite a bit to go over, some things prior to market open. So let's go right into it. As of now, we've got the MMRI sitting at 276, which is still in high area, of course, but it's been relatively stable. So the market appears to be sustaining that for the moment. So looking into this, we've got the relative strength of the dollar as well as the 10-year yield holding and rising slightly. So stocks at the moment are in the green. And so today I think is going to be what I call a salad day. It's going to start off a bit green, but involve some chop. So we've got futures also in the green. We've got gold is recovering from that buying opportunity dip, as I'm going to call it, over the past couple of days. So we're seeing a little pressure on oil as well. So what we're expecting prior to market open this morning are building permits and core PPIs. This is producer price index, which is a lead indicator for the inflation that we can expect as producers don't pay for that inflation increase, but rather hand it on to the consumer. So we've also got some Fed presidents speaking a little later on. We'll watch that. So in the sector for banking and economy, got a couple of things here, started looking into this. So we've seen, and of course it's being reported everywhere, that Germany is showing a lot of weakness, but some of their numbers came up over China. And we've also got a couple of admissions into falling into recession from some companies. But this is a huge deal that happened, and it's based out of Taiwan. What happened was TSMC, which is chip manufacturing, Taiwan Semiconductor, basically, they moved manufacturing out. They're not doing as much business with China under all of the threats going on in Southeast Asia. So this is another reason why I think it's important to watch not just trade, but what's going on in the world. So what happened was they decided to move this manufacturing to Germany. So now Germany will be taking over this. So hopefully this will give some boost to them moving forward. So we've got other issues that are happening because of the United States real estate issues, commercial real estate loans, short sellers against German banks. So there's an important issue that needs to be addressed here. Basically, United States banks, if they hold commercial real estate, they have bank term funding, lending programs and other things through the Federal Reserve that they can swap in or hedge against this to a point. Germany and foreign banks do not. They just simply have to liquidate the holdings, the assets behind it. So I'm going to leave that's a short summary of that, I realize, but we'll move on. We had a report that retail sales in the UK jumped in January. So saying there's a significant increase in the spending for this month. The numbers are always skewed a bit. And then a lot of this does not account for inflation. So the retail sales have increased, but how much of that is due to the inflation? Because prices are higher, it's not necessarily adjusted for that. So just a warning on that when you look at the numbers. So we've got the House considering law changes to emergency bank liquidity. So this is just coming out. They're talking about FHL, Federal Home Loan Banks. So they're talking about changing the lenders' roles, and basically this is going to be different ways that they can feed in and backstop certain banks of their choosing. So with that, we had news from Valley National Bank. They have a high exposure to commercial real estate, and they're talking about they're confident despite investor worry and saying that the turmoil of the NYCB will not follow through with them because they think that they are resistant to this. Again, I question that. So moving forward, we've got issues with foreclosure filings on the rise, and this is in particular with the residential sector. However, the commercial sector is even weaker. So this is a relatively fresh report. It does include the numbers for January. And as you can see, it has some of the highest hit states, talking about Michigan, Minnesota, California, Pennsylvania, and Missouri. So those states are really getting hit with the foreclosures. Basically, REO stands for real estate owned by the bank. So talking about more on the economy itself in the auto manufacturing, we've got Ford is talking about teaming up with GM, General Motors, because they can't compete with China in the EV section, electric vehicle. They showed that 30% of the vehicles that they've got in their market are now produced and sold by China because they're much less expensive. So they need to cut costs. They're talking about teaming up basically in the battery section production predominantly, because that is the large issue with them that they cannot sustain. So the other part of this is, after all of the strikes and having to agree to higher pay for their labor, the Ford CEO now says the company will rethink where it builds vehicles after that strike. So, of course, they're going to be moving a lot of this offshoring. So, when you push for the higher wages and it's unsustainable, this is one of the consequences. So, lose out on the business in the United States. So, we've got JP Morgan and BlackRock, and this is no surprise. But now, after the main ones that pushed this, they are now backing out of the ESG. So that's the environmental, social, and governance for businesses, basically requiring businesses to issue carbon credits or go green. So this is an expensive angle for businesses to have to incorporate. And now they're both dumping it now that they have basically set this up. It's one way to run out the competition. So, with the nuclear threat that was, well, significant threat, I should say, that included possible nuclear issues that was issued by the White House in the United States, well, the Kremlin has responded to that. And basically, what they're saying that it's just a ploy so that they would pass more funding for Ukraine. And if you look at the underlying, it looks like that's likely the case. And I'll show you a little bit of this. So, anyway, all of the mainstream media took on to this. And while it is a possible threat, it has been for some time. There was the whole Star Wars thing that happened back with Ronald Reagan years back in the 80s, which we still have. Well, that was kind of a ploy as well back then. However, that's kind of what it's heading towards. So they're saying it's clear the White House is trying, by hook or by crook, to push Congress to vote on a bill to approve funding for Ukraine. We'll see what tricks the White House will use. So, and this was direct from the Kremlin spokesman, Dmitry Peskov. So, yes, they have their own side of propaganda, but I want to take a little look at something. So I thought this was interesting. Picked this up from a link from another channel, Monkey Works. I strongly recommend him. He watches all of the things that are going on as far as flights in and out military. At any rate, this is from Leo Labs, and I'll leave a link in the description if you would like to take a look at this. But this is a picture screenshot I took of all of the uh, low Earth orbit satellites. So these can be anything from internet to surveillance to communications. So when you look at this, you see the massive amounts that are there. If one were to set off either an EMP or something in space, nuclear, otherwise, it would could possibly take down the grid and cause serious issues. So that's why they're saying actually the next war is truly is in space. So part of this whole thing, this claim for this threat and everything going on, while it is potentially serious threat, Uncle Sam wants you to buy bombs. Back in World War II, they used to say buy bonds. And we're kind of going into that same thing, but we're talking about the recovery of the war of Ukraine. So first, your tax dollars go to pay for the bombs that, of course, are destructive. And then they need you to pay for the recovery and rebuilding. This is a breakdown of where those costs go. So not just the United States, but Western world in general. Von der Leyen talking to the EU about subsidizing defense production, and a lot of this going to Ukraine as well. And it's all a massive cover up for a lot of corruption and scandal that has gone on there. So with that, we've got a story about the IRS talking about tax refunds much smaller so far this year, as if it's a surprise. They've imposed different rules. So taxes have increased and refunds or payments increasing really. They make you pay out first and then they give you a little bit back, if that. So I wanted to bring this up. This is what we were talking about with the disruptions through the canal, that they are now going over land for a lot of supplies, basically, to replace this instead of over the ships that are being attacked. And just to bring this up, the major ports they're going through, because we're seeing an uptick in issues around these ports. So we'll keep you up on that as well, because that directly affects not just supply, also inflation and therefore costs put down to you and the overall economy. With that being said, we've got a couple of things developing. One is in Pakistan. So Imran Khan, if you're not familiar with him, has not necessarily been friendly to the Western world. However, they have arrested him because he's running into politics now, but he's a very famous athlete there, if you will, and he's gaining a lot of political power there. And so we're watching this shakeup. There's a tremendous amount of activity mounting in Pakistan. And so that's, I think, an area we're going to need to watch, as well as now we've got Iran has gone nuclear. So they have larger capabilities that we haven't even been talking about in the mainstream media in the West. So times are shifting, things are changing. So a couple of lava updates. The first is, of course, and you're going to hear about this because I know they want this out there for everybody to know. OpenAI is now doing a text video called Sora. So I'm expecting deep fakes to just increase tremendously with this, but it's new technology that's out, could be cool also. And then one other thing that is happening, and this is not in the mainstream media either, but this is like it's at a fertilizer plant and it's burning. They had an issue and it's giving off this deep purple smoke. This is in China's Henan province. And ironically, it happens to be in a province to where their numbers are not what the Chinese government really wants to see. So it's very interesting. And they have assured everybody that they've tested it and it's completely harmless. Anyway, with that, I would like to wish you all a green trading day, wonderful day in general. And if you would just give this video a like, I would greatly appreciate that. Have a wonderful weekend. And until I see you again, my friends, stay free.